Welcome to the Joy Work Show, the podcast that goes beyond the surface of business and dives right into the heart, where joy meets the stories that shape success. This isn't just about the highlight reel, it's about the challenges, the grit and the resilience that pave the way for those moments of celebration. Hiya, I am Diane. And here on this podcast, we know that joy isn't just about the good times. Often, the greatest joy comes right after the greatest challenge. Each week, we invite business owners to share their incredible journeys through our unique show and tell. They reveal something they love that transformed their work or life, a book or person that shaped their path, their joy mentor, and something they think the world could do without, a real joy killer. And today we have a special episode for you. One of the things that I'm loving about this podcast is the paths that I am crossing with extraordinary people that I may not have crossed paths with, otherwise. And Julie, my guest today, is perhaps one of those people, yet so much of our stories had so much connection, and I'm so excited for you to hear about her today. So today I'm joined by Julie Begbie, a happiness psychologist and small business mentor whose journey is as inspiring as it is empowering. We talked about resilience, mindset, and how to find joy even in adversity. Julie shares a little bit about her challenging childhood and how it shaped her drive and her resilience, how Disney magic connects us through experience and nostalgia, and why selling transformation, not just a product, is the key to building a successful business and ultimately a legacy. So if you're ready to discover some joy and embrace the lessons life throws your way, let's get started. It's always better to hear from my guests themselves. This one's packed with insights, laughter, and a whole lot of heart. So let's go. Hi, Julie, and welcome to the Joy Work Show podcast. I am so delighted to have you with us today. Can't wait to get to know more about you, your happiness psychologist, and everything that I've read about you so far sounds so exciting, and I just need to know more. So let us know today who you are, what you do, and how you got here.
Brilliant. Oh, thank you so much, Dan. I really appreciate you having me on. This is just such an exciting opportunity for me. So my name is Julie Begbie. I am a happiness psychologist and small business mentor. And how I got here was, we were just talking beforehand off recording about our childhoods, and I'll just do a wee bit of summary around that. I'm originally from Northern Ireland. I now live in Edinburgh. And I grew up as an only child. I had a great childhood. Like, I didn't have a unhappy or unjoyful childhood in any way. However, when I reached my kind of early teenage years, I realized that my mum had clinical depression. And I'd kind of, I didn't, because, your life is your life. And you just kind of think, well, all families are like this. And it got worse as I went through the teenage years, and as soon as I became aware of it, then it became don't get me wrong. I mean, she was still a brilliant mum and everything, but I started to then worry that maybe this was genetic, because it had a huge influence on her own personal. I was kind of going through the school years and trying to work out, it's that difficult stage for everyone. You're trying to work out, well, what am I going to do? And back in the day, because, I am a bit older than I think I actually am, but back in the day, you were meant to leave school and either go to university or go and work in like the civil service, or, just somewhere, or a bank. And then that would be a job for life. And you would do your 40 years and you would get your final salary pension. Like, I'm back in that day. So there was quite a bit of pressure. I mean, I'm sure there is currently as well for, I've got a 20 and a 21-year-old. So like, I get that pressure to know what you want to do. But I think now it's nearly like you have to decide what you want to do now. And it's not really kind of assumed that you're going to do whatever you choose now for 40 years. Whereas, back in my day, it kind of was. Anyway, left school, didn't really know what I wanted to do. So I thought, well, I'll go to university and that'll put off deciding what I want to do for another 4 years. And didn't love any subject, so there wasn't an obvious course for me to do at university. But I discovered they offered psychology. Now, I'd never studied psychology in my life. I didn't know anything about it, but I thought, well, that's the way for me to work out how to come up with strategies for joy in my life. So I studied psychology at Queen's University for 4 years. It was disappointingly joyless. It was before. So now positive psychology is a huge thing. But when I am so old, I went to university in 1986. Positive psychology hadn't been invented. So there was an awful lot of studying of rats and ergonomics of seats and all of that. And it was interesting, but it wasn't quite what I'd hoped it was going to be. But it took me on this journey. And when I finished my degree, so my mum died just before I went to university, and then there was the whole kind of guilt around leaving my dad and whatever. So again, the kind of the joyfulness, so then it became, how do I make my dad joyful? So not only how do I create strategies for myself, but I was really aware I was leaving my dad on his own. It's like, well, how could I show him ways to make his life happier and more joyful? So finished my degree. And at that point, you had a few choices as to where you could go with psychology. One was clinical, one was educational, and one was occupational. There's a lot more choices now, but those were the kind of three main ones back in the day. I was a bit fed up with not having any money at that point. So occupational was the shortest masters. So I did that. That was just a year. So I did that one. And that's how I ended up in Edinburgh, because I moved then from Queen's in Belfast. I went to do my master's at university in Hull. And then it was 6 months teaching and then 6 months research. And the research project that I got given was in Edinburgh. So went up to Edinburgh. I'd never even been to Scotland. Went to Edinburgh to do that. And then I've just never left. I kind of ended up meeting my husband and I've just never left here. So there was then a part of my life where I did get that proper job in a bank, and I was working as a financial advisor, and then I was working as in learning and development. So trying to kind of go back more to the kind of business occupational psychology slant. Did that for about 15 years. And then I got married, ended up pregnant with my first son, went back to work, and quickly realized that my work I did love my job, and I loved the people I worked with, and I had a good job, but it just didn't feel enough anymore to walk away from my son, to be putting my son in nursery for, a significant amount of time. I just had that, I'm not nearly like that sort of midlife and I wasn't quite midlife at that point, clearly I'm past that now, but that sort of, I'm not quite fulfilling my purpose. I'm paying somebody else to bring up my son, and it's good, but it's not enough to do that. But what was really interesting was my manager at the time, and she was absolutely fabulous, but she was pregnant about 6 months before me, and she had her baby and was back to work within about 6 weeks, and she came back full time. Her son was put to a nursery for 5 days, and there's nothing wrong with that. Everybody makes their own choices, but I sort of felt like, oh gosh, that's what you need to do to be successful. And if I step off the career ladder here, I might fall behind, and it's all these kind of dilemmas that women have. So the compromise was I went back 3 days, it worked fine, but I'd met lots of people on maternity leave who then had maybe taken a year off, or maybe were going back shorter, or maybe had parents looking after their kids, and just a different scenario. So I was just a bit unsettled. Anyway, much to my employer's delight, I got pregnant again really quickly. There's only a year between my kids, so they just yeah, oh right, isn't that it's great to get all the hard bit over with, but as an employer now, I understand that I probably wasn't that wasn't delightful news for them. Or all right, we'll pay you another maternity leave and you won't be here. Anyway, then because that happened, whenever I had my second son, and I looked at putting him into the same nursery, and I had chosen. So it's funny, as a business coach now, well, this is going slightly off on a tangent, but I'll come back, I work with a number of nursery owners, and we talk about price and, what's your USP kind of in the market. And what I keep saying to them is, see, when I was looking for a nursery for my son and I was racked with guilt going back to work and leaving him, I did not want the cheapest nursery. I was not that was an absolute red flag to me, no matter how brilliant it was. So I put my son in a really expensive nursery in Edinburgh. There was loads of really good nurseries around me, but they weren't good enough for me and my guilt. But then when I had a second child, I was like, double the price of that nursery is more than I earn. So actually, this has now become a very easy decision. I need to walk away and I need to just actually bring my kids up. So I went from this kind of, big corporate career to just nothing, but being just as well off because, you know, I would have been paying my whole salary across. So it then put me in this lovely kind of leveraged position where I probably never would have walked away, because it's a big deal to walk away from a job, right? But I didn't really have a choice in that. But then I found myself going, okay, well, this is great, but I still want the lifestyle that I had. I still want the money. I still want to do the holidays. I love a holiday. I still want to do the holidays. So I decided I was going to set up some sort of a business that would make this extra money that I could do around the kids. And I would make this extra money and I would take the money that I generated through the business and I would just use it for holidays. And I did that. I set up my first business, was called Keepstakes. I made engraved garden plaques for christening and new baby presents. So they would say, you know, planted to celebrate the birth of such and such, with a date and a nice little quote. And then they would be gifted with like a sapling tree or tree seeds or something like that.
Lovely.
So yeah, like I really, and because I was very much in that world where I was going to lots of christenings and, you know, like baby showers and all of that. So it was coming up with a gift that just didn't exist on the market. With hindsight, that made things much more difficult. I thought when you started a business, you had to come up with something that no one else had come up with before. That's how, you know, and then it turns out like you can have more than one hairdresser or, you know, anyway. So then marketing that was really difficult because people are like, sorry, what is it again? Anyway, that's an aside. It worked well enough that I made enough money to take my kids to Disney World. That's really what I wanted to do. We had this amazing magical holiday in Disney World, the four of us. And I came back and I was like, great, I've had my once in a lifetime holiday and I've set up this business to do it. And that was supposed to be it. It was supposed to be once in a lifetime, but we had such a great time. I came back and I'm like, well, you know, why would I not continue to do this business, continue to build it? So I did. And then we raised enough money. And my criteria is always that extra money goes in a separate pot. So then the next year we had enough money to go back to Walt Disney World again. So we're like, kids are like, no way. So we went for Christmas. Oh, it was amazing.
Wow.
Came back and I was like, I just totally love Walt Disney World. I think there's a potential ADHD diagnosis going on here. I get very fixated on things. Anyway, long story short, Diane, we then went 11 times, 11 years in a row to either Walt Disney World in Florida or California, or we did in between, we did Paris. And it was just the thing that I loved about that so much, in terms, you know, bringing it back to joy, is Disney have got you on all of the senses. You know, you walk in and they've got the joyful smells and they've got the joyful signs and, you know, the joyful images and the beautiful castle and generally, unless it's Paris, the gorgeous sunshine and just everything is, I feel like I'm in a constant joy seeking mode. And when I go into Disney, I feel like I'm being held. Does that make sense? Just like that whole, anyway. So had Keepstakes for a number of years, just got a bit kind of, the marketing thing was just really tricky because no one really understood what it was. Then I ended up doing a course for my day job because I was still doing some freelance business consulting and like training delivery. And I did a course in neurolinguistic programming and I ended up sort of by default becoming a hypnotherapist. Anyway, so I had a hypnotherapy practice for a couple of years. And then I set up a jewelry business. And that was just so much easier because people know what jewelry is, right? So there was no, I just need to explain, you put a little heart on a chain like that. And that was Keepstakes all over, like, what is it? So I set up a jewelry business and I had that for, I think it's about 11 years. And I just sold it. I actually just sold it about two or 3 months ago now. And again, all of that money has been focused on holidays. So because I've had this kind of eclectic series of businesses, what then started happening about 5 or 6 years ago, people started saying to me, I'd love to set up a business, but I really don't know where to start. Like, can I take you for a coffee and pick your brains? So I did quite a bit of that and I loved those conversations, but it just became clear that there was a need and I couldn't keep on doing those for free because, you know, it just wasn't sustainable. So I decided to set up a business, like a service-based business to go along with my product-based business so it started off being called Happy Side Hustle. And it was about find that, so a bit of a psychometric test to find that thing that brings you joy, that thing that you would do on a lazy Saturday afternoon with no other demands on your time for free, that you'd love to spend your time doing anyway, and then monetize it. Like, so then turn it and then take that money and use it for a holiday. So like in a dream holiday fund. So just exactly what I had done. And that worked so well. You know, it's like people, there are just things that come easy to you, but because they come easy to you, you think they're easy for everybody, but they're not, because we're all different. We're all bringing something different to the world, and helping people really uncover that thing that they cannot wait to bring to the world was just such a joy. So I did a number of kind of free 5-day challenges, and then I had a program to help people actually set up their side hustle. And that was going for about a year and a half, when then the people that set up their business started saying to me, well, this is great. I've got this thing that, you know, I really want to do, and I've set up my business, but I don't really know how to market it. I don't really know how to bring people into my business and help like serve people, because everybody had this, you know, whether it was a product or a service-based business, they'd all come up with their why, you know, their mission, what they were going to do. So then I set up a second. So my first membership was called Side Hustle Launch School. I set up a second membership, which I've called Small Business Success School. And that's all about marketing, momentum and accountability, but mainly mindset. So this is where the psychology started coming back into it, because I realized even though people knew what to do, they weren't always doing it. I was like, okay, what's going on here? Like, even though you know that you need to market this X number of times, you're not doing it. So then we started having those questions about, and the scenario that I give is, you know, people are really worried about what Sharon from school thinks. Like, I'm of an age where I had loads of Sharons in my class, you know, so Sharon from school, like if I position myself as an expert in something on the internet, Sharon from school might laugh at me. Sharon from school might comment on that. Sharon from school might think, you know, who on earth does Julie think she is?
Yep.
And there's an awful lot of that to get over before people can really make a success of businesses. So then I created a third membership, which is all about creating memberships, because I find that people would start off with a product-based business, and then in their business journey, they would go, okay, well, I used to make knitted headbands, you know, and I sell them on Etsy. But actually, what I really want to do is I want to support people in later life, because I'm in the sandwich generation, and I've got a lot to share around that, for example. So I've got a lovely client who has moved from, well, she still does knitted headbands, but she now also supports people. She's got a business called Loving Later Life, and it's amazing. What people had sort of developed through their confidence from a product based on, I think it's easier with a product to go, here's a thing, give me money, you know, I'm giving you an actual thing. With a service-based business, it's like I'm giving you my energy, my knowledge, and people are just there's a wee bit more kind of psychology work needs to be done to get most people confident to do that. So anyway, as people started moving through that business journey, I set up a membership to help them set up memberships and training programs and, you know, coaching programs, that sort of thing. So then they could teach people what they'd learned on their journey as well. And everybody's got, you know, everybody's different. Everybody kind of teaches things in a different way. So that takes me to where I am now. I'm just about to launch, I love a wee membership. I'm just about to launch another one in the new year, which is around AI. And because I've been on a bit of a journey with AI over the last year. And again, I just like taking people on the journey with me and not kind of presenting at the end of the year and going, did I know all these things? And, you know, so it's as I'm exploring it, all my memberships are about, here's me kind of, you know, growing everything. I can ultimately making a bigger difference to the world. So I've got a mission called Mission Happiness, which really fits well with the kind of joy thing.
Yeah.
And it's about finding ways to do all the things that you need to do, but finding ways to do them that make you happy. And you can't do it for everything. I can't find happiness in my accounts. I've got to say, I've really tried that. It's just something that has to happen. So I upload as much as I can to my account on that. I'm not an attention to detail person, but generally you can find a way to do something that makes you happy. And I'm still very much of the mission. I consider myself to be really happy, but I think I am really happy because I consciously look for ways to make me happy. I understand what makes me happy, and holidays are one of them. So I always have a holiday planned, but I'm always every day going, you know, what am I? And then it's gratitude. It's linked to gratitude as well, right? Like, what are you grateful for? What have you done today that has brought happiness? And sometimes it's about, you know, like, so I go for a walk every day. That makes me happy. Sometimes I see 2 magpies and, you know, I think, oh, that makes me happy, like 2 magpies. Like, so it can just be little things, but it's about really noticing them and taking responsibility for your own happiness, and not being that person to go, life's just happening to me and it
Yeah.
isn't as happy as I would want it to be. It's like, well, what can you do about that? What can you do that kind of brings that happiness? So okay, so that takes us up to the present day, Diane. Here I am as a happiness psychologist and small business mentor, helping people to bring their mission to the world in a way that makes them happy.
Well, there is so many correlations with our lives, our journey, and the way we see things, because obviously this is the Joy Work Show. I have a membership called the Joy Work Members Club. I have a community called the Joy Work Club. It's the reason I set them up was because I needed a space to be myself. I wanted to bring more joy into the world, to have more impact. And for me, joy isn't about the happy, clappy, sparkly, pink. And don't get me wrong, I love all that too. But it's about the little things. It's about you saying, like, it's a choice. You consider yourself a really happy person, but it's a choice. Every day you get to choose what your day goes like. And yes, big things will happen, traumatic things will happen, small things will happen. You'll get your cardigan stuck on a doorknob, all of those things will happen, but you can choose to then see the gratitude in it, see the joy in it, see the happiness in it, and it's how you choose to live your life. And I think it's really important that people have that awareness. And often when we're in a place of lack, we're in a place of negativity, we're in a place of, it's our own mindset that has that there's things, I always say it's that thing happening to me rather than something I get to do. And it's something I work on a daily basis. It's not easy. I'm not a naturally joyful person. I can be quite quiet and dark and things like that, so, but I do choose to show up in the world in a certain way. And I think that's really, really important. I just want to touch on the reason you get into your own business in the first place, because it's exactly the same reason as me. I started my business last September 2023, after the end of my second maternity leave. So I've got 2 children who are young, 3 and 2.
Love it.
Slightly more than a year, but not, is it 18, 19 months between them.
Mine's 16, so yeah,
Yeah,
we're very aligned.
yeah. Like you, I did take a year off with my first, but I went back to work and didn't realise when I agreed to go back to work that I was already pregnant with the second.
Yeah.
And I went back to work 3 days. And like you, it was fine, but that's about all it was. I really didn't feel that. I'd had a 20-year career in direct sales and marketing. I'd earned very good money. I had been very successful and been in a job that I worked ridiculous hours quite often, 5, 6, 7 days a week. And then I had this life. Well, COVID happened. I did get pregnant in the pandemic. So it was a slightly different experience as well from the workplace. But once I was back from my first maternity leave, we were all back in the office anyway. And it was I just didn't feel that I was thriving in any aspect. And I wouldn't say, apart from the home, when we were at home together, that was the greatest joy I'd ever experienced. But everything else around it just wasn't like that. But when I made the decision to go back, I didn't realise I was pregnant and all of those things. And then once I had my second wee girl, and I was very ill after I had my second. She was great. So I was ill for a few months, but then that very quickly from that maternity leave, I think she was born in the September, and by the Christmas, and I don't know whether being ill had been part of it, but by the Christmas, I was like, I don't know how I'm going to go back to work. I don't know how we make this work. Never mind the financials, which are crippling, but I'll come to that in a minute. But logistically, I was like, I don't know what this looks like. I don't know how you go to work. I drop them off. I pick them up. I don't know how that, and I don't see in that scenario how anybody does well. And I understand that's from a place of privilege and a place of choice, but I don't know how we do this and make everybody happy. At least a little bit. They don't need to be happy all the time, but just a little bit would be nice. So that's when I began to look into the online space, and I knew there was other ways that I could work. I knew there was other ways that I could do things. And I'd always, over the 20 years that I'd been in my career, there was always little things that I'd done on the side, not businesses, but I'd wrote blogs, I'd looked into other things. I think I made cakes at one point. There was all these things that I did. So there was always that thing to look for some, not necessarily more, but different, and perhaps do something myself and perhaps do something on my own. So it just got to the point that I was like, and like you, it almost felt like now or never. If I don't do it now, if I go back after the second baby and go back onto that wheel, when would I get off? When would be the time to get off? And we decided we were keeping them in nursery, because the only way for me to build a thriving business at that point, because I was going straight into service-based business, was to have them in nursery. They were in 3 days. That's what we decided. That's what we wanted to do. That's what looked well for us as a family.
Yeah.
But it's just so interesting, because this conversation comes up again and again and again. And so many people say, why are there so many women and female founded businesses in the online space? And I'm like, because we are almost forced in to that space.
Yeah.
And it's not as, for me, it was a choice, but it was still, how did, I couldn't see any other way out. I couldn't see any of that. And I spoke to my employer, and we went round the houses, and and it just got to the point that one day I was like, this isn't going to work. I can't come back. And then within 2 weeks, I'd launched my business.
I hadn't actually thought of you're right. And the online space is predominantly female dominated. I was lucky enough to be at the House of Lords on Monday. I was selected as one of the Small Business 100 through
Wow.
Scotland, and they
Congratulations.
Well, thank you. But they quoted some really interesting stats. So they said there's 4.9 million small businesses in the UK, and only 20% of them are female led. And the goal of Small Business Britain is to try and get that up to 30. But actually, you're making me think, because in the online space, and I know it's a bit of an echo chamber, and who you
it's a bubble. You're in your own bubble, and you see it's.
But I would predominantly see women in the online space, and it just hadn't really occurred to me that it's the logistics, So if we talk about small businesses, because I met a lot of other small businesses there Monday, of course, and there's a lot of people that they've run a joinery business, or they're they're doing just things, or they've got a pub, or things that are bricks and mortar, and very not looking after children friendly, not trying to squeeze in your work around. That is so interesting to hear your story, though, because I really feel like I am you 20 years ahead. It's amazing.
I did have my baby slightly later. I did have them slightly.
Well, no, so did I. I wasn't young when I had my kids, but what I can tell you, and I hope this is the same for you, and I'm sure it will be, that not quite 20 years, but almost 20 years down the line, as I say, my kids are 20 and 21 now. I have never regretted walking away from corporate, never.
No.
Sometimes you go, God, it would be great to have that steady income. And they worked in investment companies, so there were lovely bonuses, and so there are some things, and I've got a lot of friends that have continued to do that, and now they've got their final salary pensions all filled, and they're just about to retire. And my pension isn't great, but I wouldn't change a thing. I wouldn't have changed a thing.
No, and it's that I haven't regretted it yet, and I still think for our family, I don't see I'm very early on in my journey. My business is 14 months old. There's been highs and lows and everything in between. Obviously, I've now brought in the podcast, but I feel that I'm the best that I can be for everybody that needs me at this time, including myself.
Exactly.
And right now, that's really important.
Yeah.
And I have high hopes and big dreams for 2025 and where the business will go and what the business will do. So it just feels a really fortunate position to be in at this time.
Also, what an amazing message for your children, though, to go, you can just do anything you want. So
if you
go back to my
it's not going to be easy.
Yeah.
It's going to be hard, but you can do hard things.
It's possible.
It comes back to choice and possibilities. That's
completely
what it is for me.
Yeah.
Something else I wanted to touch on, and I hear it so often, and you hear it so often in some of the really big podcasts as well, and some of the greatest business stories have been that when there has been trauma or difficulties in a childhood, that really, it can either send somebody down a really bad road, or it can send them down this road of persistence and grit and often success. Do you feel that what you went through with your mum gave you an edge, or something that perhaps somebody who had the typical happy childhood, whatever that may be,
Yeah.
had?
So I think I was much more resilient than my kids are now, and it's the whole dichotomy, isn't it? Because you want your kids to be resilient, but you also want to protect them, and when they get to this older stage, Diane, it's really hard because they start making their own decisions, and you just want to go, like, you've got the perfect age. You just go, right, this is what we're doing. Everybody's decided this is what's going to happen. When they're older, they start having their own opinions. And
Yeah.
of course,
How dare they?
exactly. But to build that resilience, they have to feel, right? So you have to watch them make decisions that you think really just want to sweep in here. And so one of my sons was working for an organization, and his boss was quite a bully, so he would come back and he would tell me how she'd spoken to him, and things that she'd asked him to do. And it took everything for me not to get in the car and drive and go and speak to her. But he was 18. That wasn't my business anymore. There's quite a transition as a parent at this end of the scale to,
Yeah.
to try and work out. But yeah, so I definitely, because of, I probably hadn't thought of it as childhood trauma, but it was. Then, yeah, I felt I was more resilient. I also felt like, that's where just what we said, I felt like I had a choice. I've always felt like I've had a choice. I've always understood that emotional intelligence, the gap between
Mhm.
the action and the response. And I'm always looking for that whole, so what can I do to be happy in this moment? And I guess that's been a theme of my life. Like a couple of years ago, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And there wasn't even, it's weird now, but there wasn't a part of me. So there was quite a lot of waiting about, and waiting for biopsies and trying to find out what stage and grade it was. And there was never a part of me that thought it was going to be, and of course, like this view was not replicated by the medical professionals. But I was just like, it'll be fine, So I had surgery, I had radiotherapy, and everybody, I was actually astonished by the reaction of people, because people were like sending me pumper kits and comments, and it was amazing, the outpouring of love, and I was thinking, it's going to be fun. Like, it'll be fine. Like, it's totally. And I do think so. So the other thing is, I don't know if you've heard of Dr. David Hamilton. Have you ever heard of Dr. David
No,
Hamilton?
I don't think I have.
So you need to look him up. He's brilliant.
Okay.
He's a scientist. He's originally from Stirling.
Okay.
He then moved down to Windsor for a long time. He's a Hay House author. He's now back up near Dunblane. But he used to work for AstraZeneca, and he was involved in the research around heart medicine. And this was, again, maybe 20 years ago. I might be doing his timeline wrong, but this is the gist. And back then, he was fascinated by the fact that AstraZeneca and the laws in the world, basically, or in the UK, were allowing drugs to be approved where maybe there was just a small difference between the placebo and the actual drug. And I think it's extended now, so it's not so much the case now. But he then became a little bit disenfranchised, kind of thinking, oh, we're making big pharma, making quite a lot of money here on things that aren't really making a huge difference over the placebos. And he became fascinated by, well, how are the placebos working? Like, why are people getting some sort of difference in the placebos? So then he spent the last 20 years basically collating research on that. And his first book was called How Your Mind Can Heal Your Body.
Mm-hmm.
And when I read that, and he really explains it brilliantly for the layman, but he's got a very scientific brain. So it's very credible. I love all the woo-woo stuff as well. Like, I'm really into that. But for my friends that are like, yeah, Julie, you can't just think yourself better, he can explain how actually that changes the chemistry in your brain. And although it's not a panacea, you're likely to have, the more positive attitude you have, the more likely you are to be healthy and to get through these things. So there's lots of kind of really interesting science around. He's now focusing on kindness and the impact that kindness can have on the world, and but again, how it changes the chemistry in your body. I've always armed myself with strategies to just try and bring as much joy into the situation. And I'm very good at, and again, this is trained, as just exactly as you said about you, I was not a joyful child and teenager. Like, when I think back, I was like, oh, my kids are so much better than I was as a teenager. I was difficult. But I have trained myself over the years, and it's very habitual for me now to go, gosh, this thing's happened. I've crashed to the car, but I'm all right.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. Like none of it matters. Like what is the positive out of this situation? Or it's just about in everything. And there's so many stories when you look around the world. And I know it's not always easy to go, well, there's people that are worse off than you and therefore feel better. But when you see the joy that you find in third world countries and, people that have nothing and have horrific situations, it then makes you realize, well, it's possible. Like it's not easy, as you say, it isn't easy to be joyful most of the time, but it is possible. And it's possible to look at everything and go, well, where is the joy moment in this situation? Where is there's a positive and negative to everything. And you can train yourself to be that real optimist and to be able to find that in situations. And then also, I think that's really infectious. When you can be and enjoy yourself, and when you can find that joy in situations, people go, I can't believe this is the reaction you're having to a cancer diagnosis. Like people were like, that's so like, it was just beyond people's, but I'm just like, and I was fine. I had surgery, I had radiotherapy, and I'm fine now. Like it's fine.
Well, that's wonderful to hear that you're absolutely fine now, and it's good. And it's that thing that I think when people, and I think when it's infectious, and I think when people can really buy into you, and as we're both in the business coaching space, and that's how we work with our clients, I know that my clients come back to me because that is the conversations that we have, and not that I'm telling them that it's not hard, it's not difficult. There are days where we will have conversations where it's like, do you know what? It's okay to just go and have your coffee and just think, this is just a bit rubbish just now. And I'm just going to have a little moment, and I'm just going to think about, and if it's a cry or it's just a moment or a stomp outside or whatever it is, but then you have to move on.
Yes.
So joy or happiness is then that strategy, then that lever to pull on to think, right, well, how do I keep going? Because there is days where we have to find those vehicles to keep going. We can't, or what's the point? What do we do? Do we just sit down and watch the telly? I mean, it is, and it's not easy, and it's uncomfortable, and people don't like it. But I think when it's authentic, and when it is real in the sense of it's not this toxic positivity.
Yes.
It's not that you don't need to be happy all of the time, but you need to see the happiness.
Here's how I view it. I think that I feel my life as an analogy, like so again, you're maybe just a bit young for this, but Sonic the Hedgehog. Do you know Sonic the Hedgehog?
Oh, of course. I am not, honestly, I am not as young as you think I am.
Sonic the Hedgehog, right? If you think about that platform game where Sonic's running and he's collecting the rings, and he has to collect so many rings to level up, right? I just feel that's life. And I think the rings are the challenges that are thrown at you, and you have to feel them. You have to process them. It's not about like putting the rings in a backpack and forgetting about them. It's like when you are feeling crap, it's about feeling crap. It's about giving yourself permission to process that and go, it's completely normal that this horrible thing has happened, or I'm not feeling in a great way. I'm going to process it, but it's putting it on a time limit on it and going, I'm not still going to be like stuck in this feeling in 3 months. Like I'm gonna take an appropriate amount of time, because crap happens to you in life, right? There's no doubt you're not going to go through. And joy is not about that kind of life where nothing ever goes wrong. Joy is about like really experiencing all. Because if you never had the crap emotions, you'd never know what the great emotions are.
No.
So it's about experiencing them all, but processing it and really taking time to go, yeah, this is exactly how I feel, and I'm going to sit with this. But then I'm going to let it go. Then I'm going to work out, right, okay, what is the ring? What's the lesson? So I think all the crappy things that happen to us happen for a reason. And if you don't get the lesson, they get presented to you again and again and again until you get the lesson.
Get it.
And that's the sonic ring. And I think when you work out the lesson, when you go, right, this is crappy, but what is it I need to learn from this? Then you just become, you shift your identity, you become somebody different, and you eventually get to level up. That's what we're aiming for. And that leveling up cannot happen without a whole roller coaster of things happening to you on that sonic platform.
No, completely. I couldn't agree with you more. And my mission is to make sure that it is accessible for people to learn, find it, feel it, grow it, and just have the life and business they want. It's totally achievable for you if you just keep taking the steps towards it. And joy and happiness are a huge part of that.
Absolutely. It's the why not you, Diane, isn't it? And I think
Completely.
so many women in particular who just maybe not even consciously, but maybe just don't feel that they're worthy, of doing it. Like they wouldn't be so they'll go, oh my goodness, look at that person in their life. Well, you can have that as well. Like, why not you? Why would
Hmm.
this be available for somebody else in the world and not you? Like, if
Hmm.
that's what you want, it might not be easy, but if you are resilient and you do the actions that it needs to take to get there, that can be you. Why not
Hmm.
you? It's
Yeah.
the whole kind of millionaire conversation. You hear people, like I hear people in my friendship groups saying things like, oh, I wouldn't want to win that Euro Millions because that's far too much money. I'd only want that. You're like, don't be ridiculous. Win it and then do brilliant things with
Do
it.
brilliant things with it.
Don't do
That's,
this.
yeah, money doesn't buy happiness, but it buys choice. And
Yes.
quite often choice leads to happiness if
Yeah.
you make the right ones. It's,
And I think money, because, so again, if we look in society, right, if you go back to Disney, big Disney fan, the rich people are the baddies. Like they're the old baddies. And it's the poor girl who has nothing. She's the princess. She's the one that ends, they're the heroines. And we've been brought up on this diet of rich people are bad, oh, money is the root of all evil. And, there's an awful lot of societal stuff around us that has kind of subliminally landed in our brains that makes us go, is it okay to want to be a millionaire? Yes, it is. It's okay to want to be a billionaire. It's okay to want to be a trillionaire. Why should Elon Musk be it and not us? Like, if you want to be Elon Musk, be a nicer version of Elon Musk.
take the action that he took to get there. But it's all these things that people don't realize. They don't see the 15 years that Tesla was going before we
Absolutely.
even knew the cars were on the roads. They
Yes.
don't see everything that goes into getting to that point either.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's that
Absolutely.
10-year overnight success.
Yes. Yeah. But if you want to, why not? I was
Exactly.
I was accepted. So I've been on a kind of huge visibility mission this year, and it's made a huge difference in my business. And one of the things that I've been accepted for is the STV expert panel, right? So you'll know from originally your roots that our version of ITV up here is called STV, Scottish Television, and they have, so across their news network, and there's kind of politics programs or whatever, they have a panel of people that they contact for expert opinions. So it's like it's budget day, which is coming up. We want to speak to a small business owner about what the budget means to them.
Yep.
So we've got this database of people, and they offer you media training before they'll actually put you on the TV. So I was doing it. It was about a month ago now, and what was really interesting was we were doing it on Zoom, and it was all the actual people off the telly, right? So you kind of won't know the names now, but the people that present the STV evening news that you would see in your living room every night, and the people that were commenting on the pandemic, the scientific experts and all of that, and the political reporters. Anyway, they were all like live on Zoom, and I was totally starstruck. I'm like, oh my goodness, this is amazing. Anyway, they were talking about the fact that they've got this database, and so say something happens in the news and they go, right, who's an expert in that? Right, great, pick up the phone to them. Can you come into the studio? Can we do a call on Zoom? Well, how can we get your opinion on this? And they said the reason that they're constantly recruiting for these STV expert voices is that they do have quite a big database. But when they phone people and they say, we're looking for an expert to comment on this, so the scientific expert in particular said, what tends to happen is if we phone a man, the man goes, yeah, great, I'll comment as an expert in that. But if we phone a woman, the woman will tend to go, oh, I only have 40 years experience and a master's level degree in that, but I'm not sure I'm an expert. Like, I don't know if you want to position me as an expert on the telly. And she's like, women, we've got to get over ourselves. We've got to stand up. We've got to own our power. Like, and of course, those are sweeping generalizations, not all women, not all men, but generally that's what they find. And they have to make sure that they've got, a really kind of diverse expert panel so that, that they're fulfilling their obligations as a broadcaster. And they said it's really difficult to get women to actually say, I'm an expert in something. But we are, and we're all an expert in something.
Well, it's that thing as well. There was a study about what jobs women and men would go for, and women will read the job description and what it is, and they feel that if they're not 100% that job description, then they won't go for it. Whereas men can feel like they're 49% of it, and they'll just apply, and they'll probably get it.
Probably will.
Because putting yourself in that position, getting yourself visible, getting in front of people, having a conversation, generally gets you places.
Yeah.
And that's It is getting women to understand that. And in the online space, it is so important. And as we spoke about earlier, there is so many female founders in the online space that are doing themselves a disservice by thinking they have to be perfect before they show up. They can't possibly go on that podcast because they've heard that such and such was on the podcast and that person's so much better than they are, or they spoke about the same things as they spoke about. It's that thing, and it's really interesting. I've been having some conversations about collaboration over competition as well, particularly this conversation in the online space. And it's this thing that's bandied about. But how often do we actually see it happening? How often do we actually see that it is about collaboration over competition? And the reason it came up in one of the podcast episodes was it was somebody who told me to open the membership when I was umming and ahhing about it and coming up with the reasons why I shouldn't rather than I should. Really needed to give myself a kick up the backside, to be perfectly honest. So, and what she did is she told me to do it, but she's in the exact same space. She has the exact same dream clients that I have. But instead of her saying to me, maybe you could, I mean, she could have totally put me off and put me, but she didn't. She was like, you can do it. You can go for this. This is how good I think you will be. And she told me, and that to me is true collaboration over competition. People have said to me in the community, I'm like, I do take over Thursdays. And they're like, oh, but I do the same thing as you. And I'm like, so go and talk about it. Doesn't, and you don't do the same thing as me. We both might be working in the same sphere, but we'll both be totally different because you're you and I'm me. So, and unless you've come inside my head recently, you won't work with clients the way that I do. So it doesn't matter. Our job, we've got memberships, we work with small businesses. It doesn't matter. We all succeed when we all succeed.
Yeah.
But we have to be visible and we have to keep supporting each other and we have to get ourselves out there, or else who knows where to come and buy stuff? Who knows where to come and find us? And I just see it over and over again that people think they're being visible and there's always more places.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think it's that when, originally I was helping people come up with business ideas, and it's still part of what I do. But, often people come up with ideas and they'll go, "Oh, I've got this idea, but I think somebody else already does that." And you're like, yeah, but they're not you. Like, they don't do it in your, like, if you can work out what your secret sauce is, what you bring to it. So for example, for my jewelry business, which I've just sold, but for my jewelry business, I made hand stamped jewelry, right? So I stamped kids' names on necklaces and coats and things like that. There are probably 1,000 people plus out there in the UK doing that, and probably millions all over the world doing that. To make mine unique, every piece of jewelry came with a little card. In fact, I've got one of them here. And on the card, so it's just kind of a vestment, if you can see that. The card, it says, it's not, sorry, my camera's not focusing very well. It says, anyway, I'll tell you. So it says 3 things I love about you on this side. And then on the other side, there's a blank space for the person to write their 3 favorite things from the gifter to the gift recipient. So I made hand stamped jewelry, but that isn't really what I made, is it? That isn't really my business. My business was these cards, which cost like pennies, but these cards, and forcing people, encouraging is a better word, but really I was, because have a blank card, like you couldn't go, there's nothing I love about you. So what it does is it makes husbands write down what they love most about their wife and then give them that for Christmas. And then on Boxing Day, I would get all these super emotional emails from people who had received my jewelry, and they liked the jewelry, but they loved the card.
But it's the experience.
Yes, exactly.
You're giving that experience. You're given the opportunity for somebody to show love, and it's the experience. And so often with product-based businesses, they think they're just selling a product.
Yes.
And they're not. Whether you're selling a product or a service, you're selling a transformation, an experience, a change.
You're selling
so much more than the thing.
A feeling, aren't you? How do you want to feel after this thing, whether it's product or service? How do you want to feel? Because people don't actually want to do the work. If it's a service thing, because sometimes I'm speaking to people and they're like, I'm going to do a program and I'll do it for 12 weeks because I want to charge this. And, I don't think like that would be quite a lot to charge for 4 weeks. People don't want to do that long, hard. They just want that. If you can make that transformation, if you can help them with that transformation quicker, great. Like, you don't need to reduce your price for that. People are paying for the transformation, not the actual, and just how they want to feel at the other side.
Absolutely. Well, as you know, I ask everybody to come prepared with answers to 3 things to do with joy
Yes.
for this podcast. So I'll start with the first one, which is the joy spotlight. So that is your favorite thing that has shaped your life, business, or work.
Okay, so I've probably touched on it already, but my favorite thing are holidays, right? My favorite thing is always having a holiday and always an exciting holiday. So I kind of moved on from Walt Disney World, because the kids are, to be honest, the kids got a bit bored with it. 11 times they're like, are we going again, Mom? I mean, I loved it. So now I am a real fan of cruising, and I like to have one thing. So cruising, right? So I think I've got 6 cruises booked over the next 2 years. And cruises with my husband, cruises with friends, cruises with other couples, like just very. And I'm actually doing a cruise for the people in my membership, and we're all getting together on a cruise.
Wow.
So, but because I've got those and I've got all those, I've got it planned out. So I like to plan my future. I'm a real planner. I love the anticipation of things. I love the hope, the optimism, the, looking forward to things. Like I love this time of year, at the time of recording, this is early December, before Christmas. I love the wrapped presents under the tree, as opposed to and then all the presents are always amazing, but on Boxing Day, just everything, the optimism's gone, you've actually got there. So I love to have that kind of future planning, and I know exactly how much money I need for each of my future holidays. And then on the days when I just feel like I can't be arsed, and everybody has those days. I'm not
everybody.
I'm not like Cinderella who gets through life and goes, sometimes I know what I need to do so I'm absolutely kind of really focused on a daily plan. So every day I go for a walk, and then I do half an hour of growth and marketing activities, right? And I do more than that, but that's my absolutely non-negotiable.
Snap.
So yeah. But sometimes I'll think, I just can't be bothered. I cannot be bothered doing this. But then I look at my vision board that has all my cruises on it and everything that I've got lined up, and I think, but no, if I don't do this, I might not be able to go on one of those. I might have to say to my friends, actually, I can't afford this, which makes me. And the other thing is, I've employed my son through my business. So he's at uni, but he's doing a bit of social media for me. And, he's got the young thing going on. So I pay him a salary every month. I am never going to pick up the phone to him and go, listen, son, I can't pay you this month because I couldn't be arsed doing the thing that I was going to do. So for me, it's about finding. So it's the carrot and the stick, right? Isn't it? But it's finding those carrots that really make you go, okay, even though I don't feel like this, I'm still going to show up. I'm still going to do it because future me is going to be grateful.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Absolutely. And I love the Disney thing, although you have moved on to cruises. We just went on our first Disney in September. We went to Paris. We just went for the day because we went to France for the holiday and we went to Paris. And I'd never been to Disney in my life, even before the kids. And we were just swept up in it at all. And we didn't plan. We just were going, and we were just going to see kind of where the day took us. And I think I loved it more than the kids did, to be perfectly honest. But to see my 3-year-old see, and she still tells people now, the castle. I've seen that when the Disney film comes on, because the newer films have got the kind of 3D pink castle, and I've seen that castle, and I've seen Rapunzel, and it's when you hear her talking to other people, and I'm just like, so now Florida's well on our vision boards, and we'll be going. I'm going to wait till a little bit older so we can really experience it, because at the minute they are just a bit young. But yeah, absolutely. Although I am. Sorry, I was trying to think, when can I do Paris again before we get to Florida, because that we would go and stay.
I just like to place a bet that it won't be a once in a lifetime, because that's what I thought. I'll wait till they're a wee bit older and then we'll do it once in a lifetime. It's so amazing.
I don't think it will for us, because I've been a Disney fan all my life, to the point that I took my mum. My mum and dad came out to France with us, and I took my mum to Disney with us on that day, and she said, I am so sorry we never brought you here. So sorry that we never did this, because I was such a huge movie buff as a kid and loved, we went to the pictures, the pictures for people who are not Scottish is the cinema. Just before I say that, just get into my comfort there. Do you see that? At the pictures, the talking, the what? Yeah, so we went to the cinema, and Disney was such a huge thing. So for me, I don't think it's going to be. And like you said, they just do joy really, really good.
They just hold it for you, don't they? So the smells that are purposely wafted through Main Street. When you walk up Main Street and all the vision of the castle. I mean, I cry every time I walk into a Disney park, and I've been a lot now. I walk in and they say, when you walk in, they say welcome home. Even that, like, I'm getting goosebumps saying that to you, because it's just like, it just feels like the whole, I mean, obviously their whole advertising, their promotion is about that inner child, feeling like a child again. And I just feel so joyful and carefree, and the smells, the sights, the sounds, the experiences. And it's not even that I really love the roller coasters. I mean, I do like all of that, but I could just go and sit on a bench in a Disney park for a whole day.
That's why we didn't make plans. I just kind of wanted us, like, look, I've got no idea what to expect. I'm obviously a fully grown adult now, taking my children. So I was like, and because the babies were young, I was just like, let's just go for the day. But yeah, we went on some rides that the babies could go on. The 3-year-old, and she absolutely loved it. She thought she was like the biggest girl in the world. But to me, it's just magic. And I think as a family, for that day, we were just present with each other, being happy. And it was just lovely. And if I could bottle it, I would.
I'm actually feeling emotional just talking about that. I don't know if you saw the Disney ad last year. I'm sure you did, because it's all over the telly, but it was about the kind of teenage kids, and it was about teenage. Oh, I honestly feel emotional. So it's kind of on their phones, and then putting their phones away, and then having the day at Disney, and then slipping their hand into their own hands, and
because and it is that thing with, I think, if you give older children the opportunity to be nostalgic without force, without
absolutely.
You have to do this, or you have to be this, or you have to be happy, or you have to react this way, but just present them with that childhood memory, that nostalgia, that feeling, then that's when they will step back into exactly the same as we do as adults. So yeah.
I assume, did you not stay to the end of the night did you see the fireworks?
No, we made a decision that would be for next time. And I think we'd made the decision that we'd like to go back to Paris and stay for 2 nights.
Right, yeah.
To do a day back to bed because the kids are young, and then one day that we go in later.
Yes.
And then stay for
in one of the Disney hotels as well.
Yeah, well, yeah, we definitely said we would be up for that. We didn't do it this time because, as I say, well, she turned 2 when we were on holiday, so I was just like, it's just too much for her.
Yeah.
It's just,
But when you actually stay and see the fireworks, so they change their fireworks up every couple of years. They don't change them up that often, but they are always, so the fireworks always tell a story. They're not just like fireworks. They tell a story, and they have a narration over them. And it's always about, you can be anything you want to be, like, the world. And they're just so moving, like real, such brilliant messages for your young children to hear as well.
Well, I think that's it as well with the Disney messages, because quite often people will say, it's a bit of a fairy tale, and I thought you'd want to bring up strong girls that aren't waiting for Prince Charming. And I'm like, you haven't really listened to the Disney messages fully then, if you're missing one, even some of the more recent ones.
Yeah, if you look at Frozen and Merida and all of the really strong female leads, they're definitely,
they're changing and evolving, but even the actual messages were not about that Prince Charming was going to save Cinderella. No, it was so much more than that. So yeah, everybody go and find the real messages in the Disney movies, because we feel very strongly about them. Okay, so the second question I ask is inspired by joy. So this is a mentor, a person, or a book that completely changed things for you.
So I would say, to just follow on from Walt Disney, like Walt Disney in a way, but I'm going to come on with a different example because we've already talked about that. But Walt Disney, if you think about having that idea for buying that land and creating a world that hadn't existed, there was nothing like it, and having that vision, and then that kind of grit to actually see it through. And to have built that, when we went to California about 4 years ago now, we wanted to do it as the last sort of big family holiday, but then the pandemic sort of messed that a little bit. It's just after the pandemic when things opened up, and going into the park where Walt actually was, because Walt died before Florida and obviously before Paris, but where he was, he had his apartment, and it was just felt the energy, like, I just love energy, the energy felt incredible. But just to have had that vision, to see something. I just think life is about create a big vision, create a daily plan, and then overcome all the crappy stories you tell yourself. I think that's the secret to everything. And
Absolutely.
completely did that. But I've got another example that I use all the time in my coaching, and people are like, Julie, because it's not even a brilliant business, but I just love it. So there was a guy in the early 90s, right? There was a guy called Harland who lived in America. He was the eldest boy of a relatively big family. His dad died when he was a teenager, and he left school to bring up his family and to support his mum. He had a fairly non-eventful life. He worked in the railway, worked in the ferries, he worked in the gas industry, the kind of petrol industry in America. And when he became age kind of just over 60, he didn't have a particularly good pension. It was back in the day. America doesn't really have the kind of support, the state pension support that we would have over here, or it certainly didn't then. So he was offered, so the gas company he was working for offered him to take on a gas station, or petrol station as we would call it, that just wasn't making any money, and they didn't really know what to do with this. So they offered it out to the employees, and they said, if anybody wants to take this, we'll give it to you, and you can have it as your accommodation in your business, but you need to give us a percentage of the petrol that you sell, and if you can really make this business work. So he decided at 60, or just over 60, he was going to take this chance and create this new business. So he moved to this gas station, and it was relatively busy, and he started to make a bit of money from it, and he decided to build a little sort of motel onto the side of his gas station. It was on a quite a good interstate, and anyway, it was all going relatively well. And then one day, somebody in American government decided they were going to build an interstate that bypassed where his garage was. So all of a sudden he went from, it's like this, if you've seen Cars, Disney Cars, it's like that story where it used to be the really hustle bustle town, and then they built another interstate, and then it's just like there's tumbleweeds. So that's exactly what happened to him. His money just kind of ended overnight. There was very little state help, and he ended up sleeping in his car. So horrible. He's now 64, coming up for 65. He's sleeping in his car. All the work that he's done has gone down the tubes. And this is, as we were talking about earlier, the massive leverage to go, right, well, I literally don't have a choice. I have to make money. Otherwise, I'm not going to be able to eat. Like, I have to make money. So he started to audit his skills and go, what even do I have from my career? And the thing that he came up with, the thing that brought him joy, his secret sauce, as it were, was a recipe that he used to use in his bistro, which was attached to the motel. The motel never even got finally finished, but he had a little cafe, and there was a recipe that he used in his cafe that people seemed to like. So he decided he was going to go and try and sell this recipe to other restaurants to see if maybe they would give him the same model as he had been offered. So no risk to them, but maybe if they sold, dishes that included this recipe, maybe they could give him 10% of those dishes. And so he went to his first restaurant and he said, got this recipe, this is what I'd like. And of course they went, well, we've got a chef. Why would we want to buy it from the dirty man who's living in his car? And so they said no. So he went back to his car and he was like, crap, right, what am I going to do now? But he didn't have another choice. So he went to another restaurant and they said no. And he went to another restaurant and they said no. And he did this more than 1,000 times. 1,000 times, right? So everybody said no, because here's a dirty man with a recipe. Why would a chef want to buy a recipe off this man who runs a gas station? Eventually, I think it was 1,007 goes one, and probably because they felt sorry for him, but one restaurant owner said, okay, there's nothing to lose here. We'll take your recipe, we'll use it, and if we sell anything, we'll give you the money. And that turned into, so he was called Harlan Saunders. That turned into Kentucky Fried Chicken. And between 65 and his death, he became a multimillionaire. Why did that happen? Because he could handle more than 1,000 rejections, because he had no choice. Like, he had the ultimate leverage. He had no choice. And sometimes I think, I'll put out an offer and I'll think, obviously nobody wants that offer because no one's bought it. And then I think, well, Julie, how many times do you think people have actually seen that offer?
Exactly.
So it's like, even if I've put it out 100 times, people only see about 1/10 of what you put out. And then not all of those will be your ideal customer. And then people need to see your things 15 times, don't they, before they make it. So actually, this kind of, I think people are very quick to go, oh, I made this thing or I did this thing.
And nobody's buying it from me.
Yeah. And actually,
And
it's
we all
very
do it.
rarely the thing, of course, but it's very rarely the thing. And so when I'm coaching people, I keep going back and going, do you remember Harlan Saunders? Because I just think when you have an idea, if you're prepared to do what it takes, you can make it happen. But you have to realize that there might be a lot of resilience required in the interim journey. But when you work that thing out, you can make the multi-million pound success that he did even at 65. There's no barriers. There's no, I'm too old for this. There's no, I can't do it. We can all do it, but we have to have that grit, and that's such an inspiring lesson, I think.
Such a huge inspiring lesson, and why it's such a beautiful one, particularly that story, is because of his age.
Yes.
Because we hear about this 20-year-old with no responsibilities, no family, who then creates and knocks on doors and sends emails these days and does all the things and then becomes a success. We hear them quite often, but we don't hear about the people who have responsibilities, financial commitments, making huge risks
Completely.
to fulfill a dream, to do something, or being at 65, just being like, I need to make money. This is how I'm going to do it. And what is so interesting about the story is what always fascinates me, particularly when we go back to ones that are set in the olden days, as we would say, or as we would say, that our kids would probably say something wildly different than the olden days. When was that? Was that like biblical days? In the olden days, is that sales and marketing doesn't really change.
Yes.
People can come up with frameworks and strategies and call them different things. And we've got used to affiliate marketing now and influencer marketing now on social media. But what he was doing was an affiliate marketing scheme. That's what he was doing. He was going and saying, I have a thing. Once you sell it, you give me that. Do you want to keep talking to people about it for me? Keep going and keep going and keep going. And all these things existed then. But what intrigues me is, who are the sales and marketing geniuses that just sit in their car, totally broken,
Yeah.
and come up with that of like, this is how I can do it, this is how I can sell. And that's the true genius. But people try and overcomplicate things and try and think, well, what's the strategy I need to use today? What's the course that's going to solve the issue for me today? This from a sales and marketing point of view, it is just about going out and asking.
Yeah.
It's just what it's about. And we see it time and time again. And there's a million stories like this in terms of who are now successes. We spoke about the overnight 10-year
Yeah.
success. The Canva, she already had a successful business. She was trying to get investment to go to the next stage, and she got 100 no's. She got 100 rejections from investment banks. They must all now just sit and think we were complete idiots,
Oh,
because there's not a person on the planet who doesn't use Canva. There's so many of these stories where it's no's and no's and no's and no's, and it's the grit and the resilience. And when we go right back to talking about your childhood and you thinking you're far more resilient than what you think your children are, and, not helping them through their failure and all of those things, it is that resilience from the stories that seems to be the secret to success,
yeah. Yeah.
that you can just dust yourself off. And also no ego and not caring. And actually you'll have an ego when when you've hit the goal you want to
Yeah.
hit. But right now, my ego is that I just want that. I'm just focused on that, and I'm just going to keep going regardless of what anybody else thinks. And I do think that is a massive, massive thing
Absolutely. And
for
I think
everybody to take on.
that's aligned to that thing that you're destined to bring to the world. And well, most people don't come up with that immediately, but you have to go on the journey to find that thing. But I think, like Colonel Saunders, when you find it, and you feel aligned, and that's where you go, okay, I will go 1,000 times with this before I'll change it to something else. But I didn't know that at the beginning. I've worked through a number of businesses to get to this one, and I know this is the one that I will do for the rest of my career because it just totally lights me up. And
Mm-hmm.
because of that, I will never stop promoting it, because it's my job. It's not my job to force people to buy from me, but it is my job to help people to understand that if they need support to get to where they want to get to in life,
Mm-hmm.
it's right there.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just talking about it and just saying, here's who I am, here's what I do. Is this something you'd be interested in? Okay, no problem. Or, yeah, brilliant, thank you. Here's how we now work together. It's a exchange of energy. It is an offering. It is a way that you help people. And just by asking, that doesn't mean you're hounding or being icky or cold calling or all the other things that people seem to really dislike. But you can't not sell.
Absolutely. And I just think, especially this time of year, I'll keep using the analogy of Marks and Spencer's. They don't put an advert on your telly or on a billboard on a Monday and go, I better not put one on Tuesday. I don't want people to think I'm too salesy. Like Marks, they're just constantly saying, remember Marks and Spencer's Christmas food, Christmas stuff. Like it's here if you want it. If you don't want it, fine. But we're not going to not advertise loads of times on your telly in case you get upset. Like it's just taken that, realizing we're business owners just like Marks and Spencer's are. So we have to make, our job is to make people aware of us. It's up to people whether they purchase from us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's all down to choices and opportunities. That is it. Okay, so the third one is the joy killer, the thing you would like to see removed from the world.
Yes. So I experienced this for many years up until about 2 years ago when I discovered dresses with pockets. So dresses without pockets now, absolutely no, not in a million years. I absolutely love a dress with a pocket. I discovered a brand called Scamp and Dude about 2 years ago. Just amazing story, like really lovely story behind the brand. But what they're brilliant at is creating flattering dresses that have pockets, practical and flattering dresses. Every time I go in fact, someone said to me the other day, they saw a photo of me in a pair of jeans and they said, you don't normally wear jeans, do you? And I'm like, I literally wear them all the time. But if I'm going somewhere like the House of Lords or whatever, I'll be in my Scamp and Dude dress. So then the photos that you'll see of me on social media
are
I'm
dresses.
in a dress with pockets. And in that pocket, I have my mobile phone and I have my car keys or whatever. And then I can just leave my bag because I'm not even worried about, there's nothing of any value in my bag. I can just waltz about, swishing about in my dress with pockets. It's a game changer.
Oh, it's a total game changer. But the way they fit, the way they sit, and not just Scamp and Dude ones, dresses with pockets in general, the way they sit, the way you can hold yourself, the fact that you can put a hand in a pocket, particularly when you need to get a photograph taken and we need to learn these poses when, we're on social media and things like that. They are the greatest joy. It's like, I remember my partner got a pair of trousers that never had pockets, or like the pockets were like sealed in them, and he was like, what do you do?
Exactly.
And I was like, why do you think we carry these massive bags around with us? Because not only have we got all our stuff in it, we've also got yours.
Right, that's it. Can you hold this for me? Yes, exactly.
Can you take the car keys? That's why we don't have pockets.
Exactly, right.
Yeah, they are. And Scamp and Dude is the best story. And we have the teddies as well as the teddies you can put the picture in the back of.
Your sleep buddies, yeah.
Yeah, the little sleep buddies as well. Yeah, it's a beautiful, beautiful brand and a beautiful.
Like even today, even my sweatshirt.
Love it.
For anybody that doesn't know Scamp and Dude, I won't go into the whole story, but basically every piece of Scamp and Dude has a super power button, this little lightning bolt on it.
Yep.
So that you can press it to get your superpowers when you need it. And it was designed for children, but then adults wanted it. And of course, adults want it. Like, I love my superpower button. Like, anytime, before I come on here today, how do we press on my superpower button? And now I've really enjoyed the podcast.
Yeah, and if anybody follows me on social media, will have seen in my stories last week, I did put, if anyone wants to buy me a Christmas present, there is a black sparkly blazer with the lightning on the side of it that has just been launched, probably already sold out. But if you do love me enough to buy me that, then please feel free to go to scampanddude.co.uk. I mean, that blazer, because it is me in a blazer.
I love it.
So if people do want to come and find you, Julie, and check out more about what you're about, connect, whatever, where do they find you?
So my website is just juliebegbie.com. I'm owning it, Diane. I used to have all these names for a website. Now I just go juliebegbie.com. That's where you'll find everything. And I'm most prolific on Facebook. So just find me, friend request me, follow me, Julie Begbie on Facebook. You'll see me.
Perfect. All the links will be in the show notes, everybody, if you do just want to go and click there and find her, Julie, the easiest way. But before I let you go, there is one last question I ask everybody. What joy would you like to leave behind?
I've been thinking about this a lot recently because I'm at this horrible age where I'm going to a lot of funerals. And, normally it's like maybe like friends' parents and the eulogies are always completely beautiful. I was at one last week and it was just gorgeous. And I always walk out thinking, I really hope that person knew how much they were loved. Like, I really hope that none of that went unsaid. So I would like my legacy to be, and if you think about that, so Theta jewelry still, I don't own it anymore, but if you're interested in the appreciation jewelry, that still exists. I sold it to a lovely friend of mine. I think that sort of appreciation and gratitude thing is how people describe me as Pollyanna. I like that ability to be able to see the good in things, and also, and like, to be a positive energy. I really feel like energy is super infectious, and people, like, I want to leave, and also, we know from quantum physics, energy cannot be destroyed. So I would like to think that I'll leave a positive energy on the world, that people will, and the energy that you kind of share with everybody that you meet on the journey. It's about that. It's about that for me.
I love that. And I have no doubt, having just spent this time with you, that is 100% what you're going to do.
No, thank you, Diane.
Thank you so much for your time today. I have enjoyed every single minute of it, and I actually could talk for hours, but this is a podcast. I do need to make sure that people can listen in the snippets that they have to listen to. But thank you so much, Julie, for joining me today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me down. I've loved it.
I hope you enjoyed that conversation as much as I did. As you can hear, it was quite the conversation and quite a lot of laughs as well. A huge thank you to Julie for sharing her incredible journey, insights, and that contagious passion for finding happiness and joy even in life's toughest moments. Before we wrap up, I'd like to tell you my takeaways from today's episode. And I have 3 takeaways. The first one being resilience as a superpower. It really is a superpower. And Julie reminded us that life's challenges can shape us into stronger, more focused individuals. Success isn't about avoiding those hardships. It's about how we rise up from it. Secondly, that mindset matters. The way we think shapes the way we live and do business. When we know that our mindset is a choice that we can train and hone, we can really tap into our own power over our mind. Positive thinking and the joy of anticipation, like planning for the future, are powerful tools for success. And thirdly, transformation over transaction. Whether it's in business or life, focus on selling the transformation, not just the products. We hear so often about business owners struggling with selling in their business. When you focus on that transformation, that service, you can find it much easier and almost about connection and relationships than an actual transaction. It's the connection and impact we create that leaves that lasting legacy. If this episode resonated with you at all, I'd love for you to hit that like button, follow the podcast, and share it with someone who needs a little extra joy in their journey. And I would also like to tell you about the Joy Exchange Network, which is a free online networking that happens every month as part of the Joy Work Club community. And our next session is happening on Wednesday, January the 15th at 10 a.m. It's your chance to connect with an incredible community of like-minded business owners and discover real meaningful conversations, and perhaps just have a little bit of fun and joy along the way. Mark your calendar, register using the link in the show notes. You won't want to miss it. Thank you again for tuning in to the Joy Work Show. I never take for granted where people choose to spend their time. Keep finding joy in unexpected places. Chase it as fast as you can, and I'll see you all next week.